I've got a little devotional book on my desk that I read from every morning. The book's called Don't Squat with Your Spurs On, A Cowboy's Guide to Life. It has helpful stuff in it that often takes me an entire day to absorb. Some examples. If you're riding ahead of the herd, take a look back every now and then to make sure that it's still there. Speak your mind, but ride a fast horse. Don't get mad at somebody who knows more than you do. And my personal favorite, always drink upstream from the herd. This one seems particularly relevant today. Everybody seems to have an opinion about what global mission engagement ought to look like in the 21st century. And the conclusion that I've reached after years of seminars and books and conversations and conferences is that if anybody tells you they know exactly what global missions ought to look like in the 21st century, you should absolutely pay them no attention whatsoever. None of us knows exactly what the mission of God ought to look like in the 21st century. Now let me tell you exactly what the mission of God ought to look like in the 21st century. What we can say with some general confidence is that God has a way every few hundred years of taking everything we've figured out, shaking it up, turning it on its head, and tossing it back at us in such a way that the basic foundations of one age, the very things we thought were essential and absolute, give way to a new age in which all of those basic assumptions are called into question. And we emerge with a deeper sense of who God is and what God is doing in the world. In one age, we celebrate prophets. In the next, martyrs. In the next, priests and pastors. In the next, monks. Then popes. Then reformers. Then revivalists. Then missionaries. Each time we are convinced that this is the final chapter. And then God does God's thing and shakes it all up. And a privileged few of us get to live for about 100 years at the point that God is doing the shaking. That's us. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to know God is doing something new. We're just not sure exactly what it is. Something is drawing to a close and something else is cranking up. What is it that's drawing to a close? We're about to celebrate the 200th anniversary of the departure of Anne and Adoniram Judson for India. They were the first American and Baptist missionaries. They were appointed in 1812, made their voyage to India in 1813, and together with Luther Rice served as the inspiration behind the formation of the General Missionary Convention of the Baptist denomination in the United States of America for foreign missions, the Triennial Convention. For 200 years, we have appointed individual missionaries supported by Baptist churches to engage the world with the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's been a heady ride and a pretty solitary journey for missionaries. U.S. Baptists have been quite good at it, probably the best in the world, maybe after the Catholics. When we say missions has been at the very heart and center of Baptist life, what we generally mean is that the sending of missionaries has been at the very center of Baptist life. We sent Judsons to India, John Mason Peck to the frontier, and a host of thousands stretched from Beijing to Panama. The individual missionary laboring on the field has served as a type for other followers of Jesus who could hardly believe that anyone would ever have the courage or lack of common sense to do such a thing. Talk about drinking upstream from the herd. These folks did it, and they did it and have done it well. And it took us at least 100 years to get it right. Mission sending agencies struggled mightily in the 19th century and well into the 20th. Folks on the frontier didn't think denominations ought to be sending missionaries. Churches refused to send in contributions. Financial panics and depressions and civil wars nearly bankrupted missionary efforts, particularly in the South. Things got so bad at one point during the Civil War that James Taylor, head of the Foreign Mission Board of the Southern Baptist Convention, decided his only option to get money to his missionaries in China was to buy up a load of cotton and run the federal blockade of the South with it and sell the cotton in London and get it to his missionaries in China. We're trying to be equally creative in the 21st century. Then suddenly, in the first quarter of the 20th century, it all started working. And it worked beyond anyone's expectations. We pooled our money in a single pond and gave ourselves over lock, stock, and barrel to supporting missionaries. Baptists learned about missions in Mission Friends, GAs, RAs, ACTeens, and WMU. And occasionally the Brotherhood would talk about it. Churches rarely went on mission trips. And if they did it, they kept it close to home. Foreign missions, even home missions for that matter, was for missionaries and not for real people. Real people worked to support missionaries, gave their money, occasionally sent their preacher over on a crusade. We had it down to a science, and God just never likes it much when we get it down to a science. It is at such moments that God turns everything on its head. So what is it that is cranking up? We didn't really notice at first. Like most movements of the Spirit in the church, it started with the young people. They left home and they went into the world. Only they really went into the world. The rest of us had mortgages and car payments. We couldn't afford to go. But we sent our children off to summer missions and the Journeyman Program and the Peace Corps and to study abroad into places like Vietnam and Tanzania and eventually on mission trips. And they returned with a passion for making a difference in the world and for bringing people together around them to make it happen. And suddenly, everything was out of control. 18-year-olds were starting 501c3s to dig wells in sub-Saharan Africa. Yep. And I didn't even know you could do that when you were 18 or 28 or 38 years old. 3 or 4 million of us will go on short-term mission engagements this year. Churches have become hotbeds of mission enthusiasm and passion, both for supporting it and for engaging it. And most all of it is good news to celebrate. We get it. Following Jesus means embracing Him with everything that we've got and living life out of that embrace. Entire airplanes are filled with U.S. Christians headed around the world to share the good news of the gospel. Many people are giving more money than ever before to meet human need and to share Jesus Christ with the world. Ministry and mission is breaking out all around us. We're taking it home. We're transforming our communities. partnering with the global church and making a real difference in the world. But where is it all headed?